Welcome to this Friday's episode of Inside Workplace Wellbeing. So delighted to have my guest today, Jarlath Feeney, and we're going to talk about a subject actually that's very topical and very important. So Jarlath is the owner and managing director of the IFN Group, who owns, operates and publishes the Cork Independent. Jarlath, you are so welcome.
Good morning, Dolores. Nice to speak with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Jarlath, we knew each other back in the 90s. Back in the days when I was president of the local junior chamber in Galway and you were the then CEO of the Galway chamber.
Right, yeah.
But here we are, how many years later, and we are talking about remote working. So, yeah, you're very welcome. It's, as I say, it's a great topic, and I know that it's one that that people are very interested in. We're going to talk about your journey, Jarlath, isn't that right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so.
So the first thing I wanted to talk to you, which I think is really, really good, a way to start it, is that you're very honest about this, and you're very honest about the shift in your mindset pre-COVID and the concerns that you had when you were asked, about to talk about this topic with a member of staff and remote working. And then how basically, really we didn't have a choice in 2020. Talk to me a little bit about that, Jarlath.
Yeah, so I'll take you back to 2018, 2019. We were a typical office based in Cork and North Point. 12, 13 people working in office. Our three departments are content creators or editorial, our sales staff who sell and consult with our clients to sell advertising. Those two elements come together to make a newspaper, and then you have administration and accounts and distribution and those elements. So we were in the office. I was going there every week I live in Galway, so traveling to Cork weekly. And the general routine was I'd be there 2, 3, 4 days a week, and the team would be there. So I did have a number of requests at that time. It's kind of funny to think about it now, from one or two staff to say, look, is there any chance we could work from home from time to time? And I was totally resisting it. I said, look, you're in the sales team. You need to be here with the other members of the team because, we bounce off each other, we get ideas, which is all true. And there's, in my head, there was no other way to do that. And that's the way things were done, very office-based and working out of the office. So definitely, I did resist it, and I didn't allow it to happen. And as you said there, Dolores, in 2020, March 2020, I remember the day Leo Varadkar and Taoiseach at the time said, we all have to work from home starting right away. And that was like a decision taken out of all of our hands, taken out of my hands. And I had to basically decide, okay, this is happening. We all have to go home. So brought the team together, said from tomorrow, you're all working from home. Grab an office laptop if you have a laptop of your own. If you can take a PC from here, whatever, take it and go. It's important to realize that in our business, there's a production element to the newspaper where all the ads and the content are put together and laid out on a page, if you can imagine that, and designed, made into a PDF file and sent to a printer. That function for us was we subcontract that to a design house based in Mullingar. A team of about 12 or 15 people there, and a separate company that we contract to do that, Celtic Media. And so we had to communicate with them from the office, but now we'd have to do this remotely. So everybody just had to start working from home. And that was, we were initially told this would be 2 weeks. That was kind of very optimistic at the time. I was very much aware myself that after a week or two, I said, this is going to be longer term. It's just going to be longer term. So I went through the process of talking to the team. Now, I'd also remember at this time that everything plummeted. Like our sales went down by 80%. Like they just dropped down to 20% what they were the week before. Just it all stopped. But I said, we'll make a commitment that we will keep this alive. We will publish even at a very minimal level, even if it's only 12 or 16 pages. It's like putting it into an induced coma. We'll put it out there and we'll keep it going, because if we stop, restarting is almost impossible. You'll get forgotten about, you'll lose your contact with your clients, everybody will drift away. So we'll keep this going, we'll stay together. Everybody had to take the usual pay cuts and all that trauma that went with that and discomfort, but we got through it. Then I talked individually to the team and I said, how are you getting on with this? And there was mixed reaction. Some people were saying, this is going really well, I like it. But a lot of people are saying, this is very difficult, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm here on my laptop trying to, write an article and finish off the communication with the design house, and 1 foot away on the kitchen top is the carrots and the parsnips I have to peel and chop for the dinner, and it's all over the shop. So and all that kind of unease. So I took a decision very early on that I'm going to plan for this as potentially being for the longer term. We don't know how long the pandemic is going to go on anyway. So the main things I identified then was, first thing we need to do is to improve the technology, right? That's the first thing. So we need to invest. I need to invest in that right now. First thing was to get everybody a laptop loaded with the proper software.
Was that right away, Jarlath? Was that right away or after a little
while? Within a few months.
Within
a few months. I'd say by June I had the order placed.
Okay.
So within about 2 or 3 months, I said, we have to commit to this. I have to commit to this. So committed to that, got everybody. We have an IT provider, it's external as well, EVAD, and they said, okay, we can provide you with whatever number of laptops you need, loaded with the same version of Windows, loaded with the same publishing software that we use to communicate with our design house in Mullingar, and everybody can have the same internet security, all of that. Check out that everybody had internet, obviously, and that good Wi-Fi, which they all had, luckily. So I did that, and that was a game changer. That was completely, again, everybody settled down that, okay, this improved their working lives enormously, made it simpler, they were able to communicate, they weren't working off their own laptop, but, all the complications come with that. Also, from a company point of view, it was obviously much more secure and much more professional. It just was like, this is a commitment. I then took a further decision, said, this is going to be longer term. So if we are, let me just commit to it now. That meant 2 things. One was to deal with the existing property that we had leased from Cleary Developments. And I have to say, they were the most professional and accommodating landlord I've ever encountered. Really honourable people. I'd like to mention, shout out to John Cleary there. He said, look, your lease is up. You can leave, clear out the office when you get a chance. And if you want to come back, give me a shout and we'll fix you up with accommodation. We can keep a mailing address for a year, which was very, very, very important. We maintained a mailbox service there, which we still do. So I really want to thank them for that. And then the second part of that was to talk to the team and say, okay, we're now committing to remote working. Are you all on board with this? And if you are, then your home becomes your place of work. This is a major shift, right? This is a big change in your contract. It's a big change in how you view your work. And it's a big change in how the company, which me, resisted this, is now completely embracing it. So I would say, for my own credit, was to accept the change that was happening and adjust to it straight away. Don't resist it anymore. As Jack Welch said, change before you have to. Well, maybe not that, but accept the world the way it is, not as the way you wish it to be. So it's happening. Adjust now. Make the change sooner rather than later. So everybody accepted that. That means I had to formally advise them, like, now this is your place of work. You have to tell me that everything you need to do, your work there, like you have a safe place of work, you have a desk, you have a chair, you have your laptop that I gave you. Is there anything else you need? So I gave them all a small amount of money and said, okay, go buy a footstool or whatever it is you need, or pens or supplies, and just do it. And then if there's nothing special you need, let me know. Like somebody needs a special chair. If there are back issues, there was one. I said, fine, find that. I'll pay for it. So that was establishing their home as their workplace. There's a number of things that come with that. One is that as an employer, you're recognizing that that's now their workplace. And even from an insurance point of view, you have to advise your insurance that we're working remotely. Please note, because if somebody had a trip or a fall in their home going to their work, that's now your responsibility as an employer. Excuse me. The second thing relates to people who travel to meetings or whatever. From an expense point of view, their journey now began from their home, which that wasn't before. So those are just small technicalities, but it was more about a mindset. A mindset that says you're now working from home. Your commute is not 20 miles, 40 kilometers, whatever it is. It's now 1 minute to your spare room or wherever you have yourself set up. So that was a major shift. From that time on, things began to get much smoother. But having said that, I never took it for granted that it was always going to work well for everybody. And I think if I was given one piece of advice, is that you need to consult with people a lot.
Yeah.
Just bring them together for communal meetings. We meet 3 or 4 times a year, maybe for lunch or just coffee. But on top of that, to individually ring people a few times a year and say, how's this working for you? Is there anything else you need to do your job? And that's a huge shift. But there's also a bigger shift for me in terms of management style, if I could move on to that, Dolores, because when people are in an office, as a manager, by your presence, there's a certain amount of a supervisory air to how you're managing. You're there, they see you, there's that relationship, even if you're not, micromanaging, your presence is there. So coincidentally, I had just finished a coaching course that was finishing up just as the pandemic was coming on stream. And I said to myself, this is a great opportunity for me to take a more coaching approach to people than, if you like, a supervisory approach. Now, I was never into micromanagement. I was very much always into letting people become who they are in the job. But this was taking it to another level. This was taking it to a level where I had to get this to happen, even though people were working from home. So we all had this conversation about, okay, here we have something. We can work from home. You don't have to commute. I'm offering you flexibility, right? So I understand that you have to pick up your kid from school. I understand that you have to let the dog out or hang out the washing. That's all possible. We can maintain a decent standard of income if we can make the business work. And if you want that, let me know. If you want to continue with that. So they all said, yeah, I'm into that. How good can we make this? So I had looked into all sorts of things like, time management systems and logging on and clicking and all that stuff. And after thinking about it for a while, I said, look, I'm not going with that at all. We're going to go down to 2 words. That's all we need to remember. One is trust and the other is results. That's it. We don't have any other management, manual. That's it. So I'm going to trust you that you're going to do the best for yourself, for your family, for whoever's in your life, but you'll also do the best for the team and for the business. If you can find a way to do that, and that's something that's of interest to you, then we're on. And you have to trust that I'll do the best that the company can do for you, because we're in a time of real, I suppose, financial trauma. There wasn't a lot to offer at the time. I said, as things improve, we'll restore salaries, which we did, and we'll do better than that if we can. So you have to trust that I'll do that. I can only do what's possible. So I have to do what's good for the business overall, because then I can do it for everybody. I can't be individually serving the needs of one person and then that damaging the ability of the company to serve everybody. As Marcus Aurelius said, what's good for the hive is good for the bees. As this was a regular quotation of mine. Look, I have to do what's
that's very important, and I think that really is something that that is so important. And like, that's what people say to me a lot when I go into a company, as well as like, because I talk a lot about showing, my workshops will be about like helping people understand who they are, and that, we need to create a needs-driven culture. We look after the needs of the employees. And, sometimes people will look at the perspective of like, well, how can I look after everyone's needs? Because if I spend so much time looking after this, then the whole bottom line. So what you said there is so important. Like that is so important, looking after the whole hive, because you need to sort of have a broader boundary around it all. But you do need to have the structure in place as well to serve those needs.
You do. Like you think, you also have to realize that different people will respond differently to the situation that they're in, and you have to be, I suppose, empathetic enough to realize how you can vary that a little bit in even how you speak to them, or how you allow them to express how they're feeling. That's really, really, really important. I think that they feel that, I'm still connected to this organization and somebody cares that I'm getting on okay. But at the end of the day, the shift of responsibility came from a management structure to the individual. And, Simon Sinek, he's very well known for this idea of what's the why in your business. And we've had this discussion among ourselves, among the team. We said, like, what is the why of the Cork Independent as a newspaper? And we said, okay, we have clients who want to advertise, and we have loads of readers who read our content. And through that, we connect the advertiser to the reader. That's kind of the why of the business. But I said, that's great, but does that why get you out of bed in the morning? Does that why motivate you? I said, maybe a more important why is that this situation works for me. The why I do this is that this works for me, my family, the people I support, the people who love me, who I want to be with, the lifestyle I like to have. You're doing it because you want to protect that. And in the process, we're meeting the other why of the business, which is connecting people. They're not mutually exclusive. One supports the other. So in other words, if you can value what you have as an employee, as a member of the team, not even use that word employee, as a member of the team that takes responsibility for yourself and takes responsibility in your role as part of the team and trying to get the overall result. The job for me was really to kind of be crystal clear about the results. Like, this is what we need as a company to be sustainable. That's the word we use, like sustainable. That means it makes a profit and people can be paid in time and we don't have any immediate threat to the business. So sustainability, we're thinking long term. We all try to play the long game in terms of sometimes things won't work out immediately, but if you think, well, it'll work next year or the year after, something might come out of that. So think long term, think that this can be worth protecting, and it's on you, it's on everybody as an individual to do their part, and then collectively it works. And to be honest, I'm so impressed with the team. Like, they've all individually risen to do what they have to do. And my role as management is really just to foster that, to appreciate that, because we meet once a week as the senior team, the 6 of us, and it's about 20 minutes to half an hour on a Thursday morning, and that's it. We talk in between as needed and communicate, but that's it. So we said, how do we go? What's the challenge for the week ahead, or what things we have to look after? And off they go, and that's it. So they've taken it on. I'm really proud of them. I'm really delighted that I have these people work with me, and it's been an amazing journey from a place where we thought it wasn't possible. But I learned a lot about an office as well. You know, the amount of stuff that goes on in an office. Yes, you do lose that little bit of interaction. That's one thing you do, you know, that. And we were lucky we didn't have to recruit much, especially in the sales side. We didn't anyway. We did have one person, luckily, who came back to us, who was with us before, and that has worked out really well. But outside of that, it would be difficult to train a salesperson in that environment where you're working remotely. With journalists, it's a little bit easier. If you have a professional journalist, they know what to do. They just need kind of the style of how you do things, and they work away. But normally in an office, there is a certain amount of interaction. It's nice. It's a good thing. People kind of do get creative in that situation. But also, I realized that an awful lot of time is wasted in an office where people, you know, I would maybe 30% of the time is just frictional waste of people talking about stuff that has nothing to do with the business. It's not helping them to do their jobs. It's just stuff. And, you know, we don't have any more rows about somebody left a dirty cup in the sink, you know, and we don't have any talk about somebody left their last week's lunch in the fridge, you know, and all that stuff that creates drama. All that's gone. So people can now focus on their jobs. The other thing that was important is people are contracted to work a 39-hour week. I don't that's no longer that critical. If they can get the job done at 35, I'm not counting their hours. I'm just saying it's about results. If we can get it done at 35, 32, I don't care. Let's get it done. The main thing is that we don't take the flexibility, don't abuse it.
Yeah.
Don't take the piss, as we say. Just don't, be on the hammock all day. That's not going to work. You need to be available when you're available, and you need to take your time out when you're not available. So but they all know that. There's never been an issue around that. So
is that
those are kind of the things.
Your leadership style, though? Like, I mean, you know, you seem to have, you're very emotionally intelligent. Your leadership style, yes, it has evolved from the time where you had resistance toward remote working, but you had more of a growth mindset. You looked at a sustainable future, what you wanted, and you worked with that. Like, that really is something that not every leader has because sometimes leaders are managers are, they get their promotion because they've maybe been in a company for a long time. They might not have had the training that you had, the people skills you had. So I think you really are really showing that, like, what great leaders need in order to lead remote teams. And I think a list of what you've taken, I've taken a few notes here, like you're really giving us a list of what it takes to be a good leader in order to create that trust. Because really it is about the trust piece, because you're not having these stringent, you're saying, I allow flexibility. And I think that's where sometimes there can be this problems with remote working, where it is that micromanaging piece. Maybe the person has their work done in 32 hours instead of 34, but if they're being micromanaged and they know they are, I could see that being a huge issue. And I know it is from talking to teams. So I think your leadership style of allowing people be who they are and be flexible, but as you say it yourself, like, results, you said trust and results, as long as those results are there, that's what's needed.
Yeah, thanks for that, Doris. I came through, my first management job was 1983 when I was with Air, what's now Air, was Telecom at the time. And I was given a job to manage a team of 120, they're all men, with intermediate managers who were all more than double my age at the time. And that's, the management thinking at the time was very much kind of coming out of Drucker and kind of management of key figures and metrics and all that sort of stuff. Whereas as you progress, hopefully you learn that that's limited. It's fine if you're working to a system, but when things change, leadership is more important than management. Leadership is more important than management, because you're the person that says, like you said, we're going this direction. Are you all on board? That's a leader. A manager will try and sort of measure it, but you can't measure something. You can't measure something you haven't done before. So
I love that.
So that was for me saying, okay, this has changed. Say it to yourself first, Jarlath. This has changed. You have to change. As one of my other favorite phrases, if you want change, start with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you say to yourself first, this has changed. I have to change how I'm leading this team. So, and this kicked into the coaching training as well, where it tells you that every individual has within them the answer to what has to be done. Your job is to find it or help them find it. And that's what I was trying to focus on. Is this important to you? Do you think you can do this job? Do you think you can do it to the level we need it done? Do you understand what we're trying to achieve individually for you and collectively as a team, and what that will mean if we can do it? And getting people to kind of think through that and take complete ownership of their own destiny. And in the process, bring everybody else with them. That's the secret, because that means you, as a manager, also have an easier life, because you're not kind of measuring every single inch of the carpet to see does it fit. You're basically saying, what the size of the room, you do it, and that's how it has evolved. Now, it has been lucky. I don't want to be lucky or whatever we want to call it, but I've been fortunate to have people who have bought into it, and that's been, so far. Now we're 5 years. We're coming up in 5 years doing this, and it has just gone from strength to strength in terms of how people have engaged with it. But it's important to never take it for granted. I think every now and again you need to make those phone calls and hear what people might have to say, because someone say, look, you should spend more time talking to us. We should get together more often, or I'm missing this, so don't take it for granted, because it is a different working environment. And I say, stay connected, bring people together a few times a year, whether it's just to talk about business or to talk about socially, or make them feel part of something physically.
Yeah. Can I just ask you a question about, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, why not?
With all the positiveness you're talking about and the journey that you've had though through it as well, breaking through your own resistance, having your growth mindset and moving forward with that, over the years though, what would you say maybe that there could be signs that some of an employee may be struggling? What would you say to people about that? Like, how would you deal with that? Or how do you ensure that you know what, we all have external stuff that goes on in our lives. We're all going to have struggle at some stage or other. How do you manage that as a leader?
It's very important to listen to people. I suppose I have two main people who report into me, but it's such a small organization that we don't have a major sort of barrier to anybody speaking to anybody. It's not that sort of hierarchical. So One thing is to listen to what your nearest will say to you and say, look, I think she or he is having a difficult time. Now, in sales, for example, it can be very variable. You can lose your confidence or lose your mojo for a while. And what happens, particularly if you're on your own at home, that can become very isolating, and you're beginning to say, oh, I can't make this happen. That I've come across that a few times. My approach to that would be to call them and say, how are you getting on? What's going on at the moment? How are you feeling about things? And they'll say, I'm really not happy. I just can't get it going. And my approach has been, you just have to hang in there. Just keep doing the right things and the results will come back, because it is cyclical. Sometimes you go through an arid patch, and you just have to reassure them that you're okay with the fact that sometimes their outcome or their outputs, and it could be, I don't know, could be something happening in their lives, or it could be just nothing, could just be just a difficult few months that nothing is happening for them.
Yeah.
Is if you believe that the right person, and I believe at the moment I have all the right people, you have to be patient through those times and reassure them that you want them there, that you're happy with them, that you understand that it's a difficult time for them as well, and that they'll be okay. Because if you kind of come down heavy on them and say, why isn't this happening? You're only going to make them more isolated and you'll lose them. That's simply it.
So what I think we're creating is that psychological safety for employees to feel as though but that is huge. Like, that is one of the main things that people change job for, or, suffer anxiety, burnout, all these other things, is that they don't feel seen and heard. And actually also, when we have these external stressors that, as I say, we'll all have from time to time, that they feel safe enough to know that they're supported through this. They're focused enough to know that you're focused enough to be with them, and to know that you're allowing them get through this. But also, obviously, at the same time, it's results driven. And you said there, like, hang in there. So you're giving them this like lifeline sometimes to somebody who may be really feeling very anxious and stressful about something that's going in their life, but they know that they feel psychologically safe at work to just keep going and hang in there, because that's the why, isn't it? If you have why and keep you going.
I'm a great believer in that culture is more important than strategy. Culture trumps strategy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Culture is how you behave to each other. Like, how do you respect each other? How do you help yourselves through tough times? How do you reward and acknowledge people who have been successful? And your own integrity, supporting creativity or success, and all of those things. And if as the boss or the leader, you more than anybody else have to demonstrate that, particularly when things are a little bit difficult. Like, we've come through a lot of difficulties. I'm saying things are all simple.
Yeah.
As a company, we've come through a lot, and we've come through a lot of doubt. But if you have somebody who is, let's say, sales, whose things are going tough, they feel isolated and feel underperforming, and they feel nervous about themselves. Coming on heavy onto them is only going to make them more isolated, more nervous, and more depressed. So your job there is really to say, it'll come right. With sales, we always focus on activity. It's like a rugby game. Watch the line out, watch the scrum and the breakdown. In our game, it's about talk to more people, have more meetings. Don't worry about the result right now. Just keep that going, and the result will happen. So if you're doing that, and you're finding it possible to do that, just keep doing it. And you have my backing. I understand where you're at. Hang in there. And every time it has come around, every time. So I'm a believer in that.
I love it. Culture trumps strategy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a final question. Just if you could go back in time, what would you say to your pre-pandemic self that had this resistance to remote working? Doesn't have to be anything, hugely, but you've already covered a lot of it.
Yeah, I think as I said before, I think we were brought through assuming that certain things are necessary in an office, and that certain things have to be done a certain way. And sometimes that decision is taken out of your hands. And the quicker you adapt, the quicker you change, the quicker you realize that, in our case, that geography is history, is our phrase. I think we can work from anywhere, or we can make it happen. The quicker you realize that, and the quicker you act, the quicker that you will be successful again. As was it Darwin that said, it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of those who adapt most quickly that survived and thrive. So like there's so much stuff that went on in an office that I find now was completely inefficient. I went to the office, Dolores, I'll finish up shortly.
That's okay.
On a certain day after I had a chat with the landlord, I brought 2 terabit drives, plugged them into the server, offloaded all our files, and everything else, and I mean everything else, was dumped. I got a confidential shredding company. I said, take all the files except the personal files. I took them with me. Everything else, all this piece of paper we're keeping as records, this, that, and the other, shredded everything, and every other piece of equipment was either sold or scrapped.
Yeah.
So that was it. So now the only assets in the company are the laptops and the drives and the people. That's it.
Wow.
And that's how if you focus on what's important, what is the key thing that has to happen every week, and what are the other things you're doing that are really just being done because they're being done, but really if they weren't being done, the world doesn't fall apart. So much time spent on meetings and filing stuff and keeping records, and every place does it, but you actually find, focus on what we stripped it down to. If we have sales and we have content creation and we have somebody to do the administration, you can be very efficient, and you can actually just really allow people to focus on what they're good at and eliminate all the rest, because it only causes frustration, really, a lot of that stuff. So believe that it can be done much more simply, much more straightforwardly, and don't waste your energy on doing stuff that's not necessary.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Wow, that was a great conversation, Jarlath. I really loved it. And I think you've really given us some great gems to hold on to, and to realize that the less we resist, the more we look at why we're doing what we're doing, and to simplify things, create our culture of psychological safety for our employees, listen to them. I mean, that in itself is just great. And also realizing that we will have struggles. Life is going to get our challenges to help us grow, but that if we go through them rather than pretending they're not there and bringing everyone with us, that we can succeed. So well done, Jarlath, and thank you so much for coming in and sharing your wonderful insight with us.
Dolores, it's a pleasure, and best of luck to you and anybody who's viewing.
Thanks, Jarlath. We'll keep in touch.
We will indeed. All the best, Dolores. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jarlath.